Hello Street Snappers, Brian here with another street photography critique video. But before we start, I just wanted to mention my street photography newsletter. And if you're not already a subscriber, please do sign up and I'll pop a link in the description below. It comes out every couple of weeks, and as well as tips and techniques, it's got information about exhibitions, new books on street photography, workshops and lots more. So back to the video. If you haven't seen these before, it's where I critique 5 or 6 of my students' images on a given theme. And if you've been on one of my workshops, you'll be a member of the StreetSnappers Collective, which is now possibly the UK's biggest active community of street photographers. Every month I set members a challenge, and the challenge this month was to shoot an image using the fishing technique. If you're not familiar with it, the fishing technique is where we find a strong location, maybe an interesting background or some beautiful light, and then we sit and wait. And we wait until the right additional element comes into play, like in this image, for example. But we do have to be careful here not to fall into the trap of simply shooting a person walking past a wall or next to some street art. There needs to be another element, something interesting, something which elevates the image to something beyond the mundane. The guy in the street kind of shot that we see a lot of. And that's the challenge, making something interesting out of the mundane. Maybe there's a good moment, or perhaps the light is stunning. There just needs to be something that lifts the shot. So please remember that these images that you're about to see are all from amateur street photographers. Some of them very new to street photography, some have been doing it for a long time. And the critique that follows is my personal take on these images. And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, it's my personal view. So I'm going to offer my instinctive thoughts on these pictures. I'm not going to open them up in Photoshop and show how they could be improved by digital trickery. That's really not what critique is all about. And in my view, it's not really what street photography is all about. So let's see how they got on. So first up, we have this image from Neil Johansson, who incidentally I think is one to watch. He's winning accolades all over the place, and he's a very accomplished street photographer. The first thing I like about this is Neil's great use of light and colour. I think he's framed the woman's face in that pool of light, and the man's head almost in silhouette. I just like the way he's done that. Okay, perhaps it would be stronger if the man was made a little darker to make more of a pure silhouette. But having said that, it is what it is, and I'm not a big fan of too much post-production street photography. That pool of light is shaped like a little person. So we could almost have 3 people in this image, and that's another small element of interest that I think helps the overall shot. I like the way the shadow caused by the woman's hand is covering her face, and this is another factor which makes you look and think. Perhaps it has a little mystery, which is always a good thing. The swathe of blue in the background is striking. I think the overall exposure is spot on. So far so good. What about the composition? Well, I know that a centralised composition will trouble some people, rule of thirds and all that, but I don't have a problem with it, and I think it actually adds some impact here. So, anything wrong with the picture? Not much. I really like it. I guess in an ideal world, Neil might have waited until someone more distinctive or more interesting comes along in the true spirit of the fishing technique. But I wasn't there. Maybe there were not many people around and he just had to make the best of the light while it was there. So overall, well done, Neil. I like it. This next shot is from Adam Ramsey, or is it Ramjon? I know Adam, so I should really know, and I'm sorry to say that I don't. So please put me right, Adam. Adam tells me that he waited around for a while in the hope of finding someone who connected with that text on the wall. So the classic fishing technique. He'd waited around for a while, and having had no luck, the guy in the red top came along and sat down on the bollard there. Then Adam shimmied around a bit, trying to get the white collar in the right position to juxtapose against that big white swirl on the wall. And I've got to say, he's done a really good job here. And looking at all today's images, I think this is my top pick, and it's a great example of street photography. And I'm pleased to see that he wasn't tempted to clone out the white bits of rubbish on the ground. Realism is important to me, and this small point helps tell me that the image has authenticity. So my overall reaction to this shot, there's really very little to criticise. It's a cracker and it's a strong keeper. So very well done, Adam. This next image from Pamela Haredine, who is, I've got to say, she's currently riding on a high, having just had one of her images selected for the latest Portrait of Britain book, which I believe is volume 3 in this great series, published by the Super Hoxton mini press, if anybody's interested. So on to Pam's image here. This was shot, I believe, in Weston-super-Mare in what appears to be the golden hour. The fishing technique involves, first of all, finding your spot and waiting. And I think Pam has found a good spot here. That early evening light is lovely and it's rich, and the shelter provides a nice kind of framing device for somebody walking into the shot. I like the boxy composition, the graffiti on either side on the window panes there provides some edge of frame detail to bring you back into the scene. So like most images that were created using the fishing technique, this is based more on an aesthetic than on the moment or than on any strong narrative. And in that sense of the aesthetic, I think this is quite a strong shot and it works. The overall look, the visual appeal of this image is strong. So well done, Pam. Great shot. So the next image here is this one from Brian Duffy, where the girl on the phone is being metaphorically kicked in the face by the woman on the poster. It's a vertical composition, which I think works well, as all the key elements in the frame are vertical. The two figures, the windows, the pillar. And in true fishing fashion, Brian spotted the poster first, saw the opportunity with the kicking foot, and waited for the right person to present themselves so they could be kicked, as it were. And street photography is all about making connections, and I like this example because Brian's made a connection between the foot and the girl's face, which is much more interesting than having some random person just walk past a poster. And I guess the blue tones add to that sense of connection. So could Brian have improved on this? What's wrong with it? Well, maybe he could have waited for a stronger or more interesting connection. Somebody who just provided a stronger link with that kicking foot. But that's easier said than done, and maybe that's nitpicking. But I think, all in all, he's hit the brief pretty well here. Technically, there are no issues. Both layers are sharp, it's well composed, and it's well exposed. So overall, well done, and thanks, Brian. Tony Lloyd Davis is next up with this image that's quite close, at least conceptually, to Adam's shot we saw earlier. In terms of meeting the brief, I think he's achieved that, with a man in an orange shirt appearing in the centre of this orange star. So in a visual sense, it works, with the guy almost exploding out of the poster. I'm not completely convinced by the composition. I played around with this and I preferred a tighter crop because I don't think the stuff on the right-hand side of the frame contributes much. But having said that, I'm not a fan of doing massive crops to make an image work. I think I'd prefer to see Tony get closer in the first place and just choose a better shooting position. And this whole issue of knowing what to leave in or crop out is always a difficult decision. And if we can get it as right as possible in the camera, the image usually benefits. So as for subject matter, maybe this person could have been stronger and more interesting, but it's a guy in an orange shirt and the orange makes a connection. So I think Tony's done a reasonably good job here. I think it could have been stronger. But he's met the brief and he's shown us how we can use the fishing technique. So well done for that, Tony. And finally today, we have this image from Richard Keeling, who's appeared in these videos before. And this is another riff on the theme of connection. We often see the written word brought into street images. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It could be funny, cheesy, ironic, provocative, emotional, whatever. But the words can play an important part in how the image speaks to us. One thing about the use of words, though, they need to be direct, they need to be concise and graphically strong, which is exactly what we have here. This is graphically strong. It's a short, sharp phrase. It's a secret. It could mean anything. But of course, we're now going to consider it in the context of the guy standing there, how it connects to him. So just how strong is that connection? And that's the key question here. So what do you think? What does it make you think? Does it ask questions? If so, good. That means it's worked. Like some of the others in this video, maybe a more interesting person or a stronger connection could have lifted this a little. But there's still something about it I like. And on a purely an aesthetic or visual level, it's a strong image with that deep red and the blue of the guy's shirt really shouting, "Look at me." The shadows on the wall add a bit of depth. The main subject matter is nicely framed in that rectangle. It's compositionally pleasing and pretty strong. The colouring is rich and there's enough drama in the lighting. So really most of the elements have come together nicely here. But is that subject matter strong enough, i.e. the guy? Well, I would say very nearly, but I'm not 100% convinced. But having said that, I do think that Richard has a very good eye for a shot. And this is certainly a keeper, and I like it. So well done, Richard. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed those. 6 images shot using the fishing technique. And it's a technique we can all use from time to time, but I'd really caution against overusing it. I think there are bigger fish to fry, as they say. Well, that's it for today. Please stick around for more street photography videos. The next one is on the subject of shooting the streets at night, which is very timely as we're moving into the darker nights in the winter months. So do stay tuned. As always, I'd love to hear your comments below, and if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time. Bye.